What is up, everybody? Welcome to another World Cup recap here on Touchline Talk. Before I jump in, as always, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. And you can scan that QR code that is on the screen next to me to head to my Substack, where you can find all of my written work and become a subscriber there too, so you can get all of that delivered directly to your inbox. Two more round of 16 games to talk about today, starting with Croatia's dramatic win over Japan. Game comes down to penalties, and quite honestly, to me, that was the way this game should have gone. There was so little between these two teams. I mean, both of them have a really good spell in the first half. Croatia sort of take the initiative midway through, have some good chances, but can't find a goal. Right after that, Japan has a really good stretch where they keep possession of the ball. Ultimately, it ends up in the first goal of the game. Japan go ahead right before halftime. And then Croatia come out in the second half, and Perisic equalizes pretty quickly on. One thing I do want to highlight about this game, and you saw it on both goals, the quality of the crossing, particularly in the first 60 minutes or so, was outstanding. A lot of the chances for both teams came from dangerous balls delivered into the box, and that is not always something you see. It's something, for example, the U.S. men's national team has really struggled with, is that quality delivery from wide areas. It was superb in this game for both teams, both goals coming as a result, at least in part, of that delivery from wide areas. So we're at 1-1, and from a tactical standpoint, this game played out differently than Japan's games against Spain and Germany, where Japan was more cautious in the first half and then came out and scored these quick 1-2 punches for goals and were a completely different team in the second half. This game was much more similar from half one to half two. Japan were more aggressive with the press from the very beginning. They didn't sit back and absorb some pressure. They really took it to Croatia. And with that Croatian midfield, there were times Croatia were able to play through it. Again, this was just so balanced. There was so little between these two teams. And so the first half, it was back and forth. Both teams had the advantage at different points. The same thing happened in the second half. And as we got farther on, I was starting to wonder if Japan were going to be able to sort of make one final push to win this game before it went to penalties, whether that was at the end of normal time or in extra time, just because they were a little bit fresher. I mean, you look at the guys who were playing basically every single minute for Croatia. Japan had been able, and you even saw it in this game, rotating some players in and out. It's not like it's the same starting 11 every single game. So I do feel like they were a little bit fresher. I was wondering if you were starting to see that, and then Croatia kind of got this second wind. You reinforce the midfield during extra time, take out Kovacic, take out Modric, who at some point you just can't expect these guys to play, 90 minutes plus more in addition to what they've already done. And that really seemed to help. Croatia had a really good spell at the end of extra time where it really felt to me like they finished with as the team on the front foot, the team in charge of the game. I really thought that might swing Japan's way the longer we went in this game, and that just didn't end up being the case. And so you go to penalties. Japan missed penalty one, penalty two. That was about that. Croatia take care of business, continue their excellent track record with penalties in the World Cup, get back to the quarterfinals after reaching the final last season, or last World Cup, I should say. And so, because this is the final time we'll be talking about Japan, I do want to take a minute here and celebrate this team one more time. You go from what happened in the round of 16 in 2018, where you have this 2-goal lead over Belgium. They come roaring back, beat you at the very last minute. Now you're losing in penalties in a game where you were absolutely in it for the entirety of the match. There was never a point where I felt like Japan was just hanging on. It was, there were definitely points where Croatia was in control. But it was such, again, the word I just keep going back to is balance, even, however you want to describe it. And that is a testament to where this Japanese team has gotten. This team is capable of playing with the best teams in the world. It doesn't have to be kind of this massive upset. We got to get away from that narrative. They are just this good, and they showed it throughout this tournament. Incredibly disappointing way to end. They, in the last two World Cups on the men's side, they have deserved a trip to the quarterfinals that has eluded them throughout their history, and they just come up just short again. And so you've got a really exciting group of players. So much has been made about the fact that the makeup of this team is much more European based than the 2018 squad. That's a really exciting thing. They're they're really, really good. So congratulations to Japan on a tremendous tournament, and to Croatia for going through to the quarterfinals, where they will face Brazil in a game that was not as balanced as the first one today. Right off the bat, Vinicius opens the scoring. Soon after that, Richarlison steps in front, earns a penalty. Neymar converts it. It's 2-0 before this game really even gets going, and it just kind of snowballed from there. It gets to a 4-0 scoreline. It could have been 6, and that's not really because South Korea were playing that poorly. It's just because Brazil were that good. But, some defensive heroics, some goalkeeping heroics, some failure to capitalize on opportunities for Brazil, keep it at 4. And in the second half, South Korea kind of get into the game a little bit. Ultimately get a spectacular goal from Paek Sun-ho. I mean, just superb. One of the better goals you've seen in this tournament. So a really cool moment for him, for this team to get that goal against Brazil, and they deserved it. They created chances throughout the second half. They kept Allison busy. He had to come up with some big saves. Not that the game was ever in doubt. But this was a totally admirable performance from South Korea. I came away from this game kind of feeling like I did with that Manchester City-Manchester United game. I just don't know what you're supposed to do when Brazil shows up like this. To me, this is much more about what Brazil did than what South Korea didn't. I feel the exact same way I did about South Korea heading into this game. I think this is a really good team. They showed just how good they are at this tournament by getting out of their group. It was just breathtaking to watch how good Brazil were in the first half. And, we hadn't really seen that in this tournament yet, where they kind of just took it to that next level and looked untouchable and looked like every single time they put a move together, they were going to score. Part of that has to do with Neymar's return. Part of that has to do with you got to find a way to put pressure on them from the beginning and make them uncomfortable. And South Korea just weren't able to do that until it was too late. Because I think that is one of the things, right? You've sort of seen this theme develop with these Brazil games, particularly the other two in which their preferred 11 played, where they take a while to get going. They kind of slowly ramp it up, moving one gear after another, and then finally, they get the goal. They get a second goal, whatever it might be, and they never look like the game is out of their control. They're in control the entire time. But there's always kind of that thought in your back of the mind of what happens if they don't get the goal? Or what happens, you only have a 1-goal lead. What happens if something strange occurs? And this game, they just ended it within 15 minutes, basically. That is something we hadn't seen yet at this tournament. Obviously, they're capable of doing it. That is not a surprise. It's nothing new. But to make a round of 16 game look this easy, when you've seen, and generally speaking, right, we've seen the lopsided matchups look lopsided on the field, whether that was France, whether that was England, now Brazil. But to make it look this easy is always a good sign. And I come away from that performance wondering how many teams are capable of matching that. Again, I talk about this all the time, but the ability to win multiple ways. This team doesn't concede goals. I mean, that was a wonder goal, a wonder strike it took to finally beat Allison for South Korea. You know you have a defensive foundation. You can win, you can grind out those wins and kind of just keep applying pressure, keep mixing up your forward line, excuse me, until you get that goal. But then you also have the ability to do this. France is the only other team that comes to mind that I'm confident. You saw what Mbappe did. That's the kind of level it's going to take an attack to stay with this Brazil team when they're firing on all cylinders like this. So it poses this interesting question of, can they repeat this? That's really my big question coming out of this. Is this the best Brazil performance we're going to see in the tournament? Or is this a sign of things to come where, okay, maybe they're not scoring 4 every single game. You know, Croatia's going to have something to say about this, particularly the way they can control a game through midfield. But is this the start of Brazil making a knockout stage look as easy as you possibly can and waltzing to a World Cup title? Or are we going to quickly forget about this game because it becomes a real struggle, whether it's Croatia, whether it's the semifinals, and they look much more vulnerable than they did in this game? Because that was absolutely incredible. It was a treat to watch that first half. It makes me feel really good about picking him to win the tournament. But it is, it's sort of the similar, the last time these two teams played, you heard the commentary team talking about Brazil were very much dismissing that, saying, if we crushed them one time, that doesn't mean it's going to happen again. It's a completely new game. And the same thing is true for that quarterfinal against Croatia. I do feel like Brazil has a higher ceiling and is better player for player in terms of the guys that are going to be on the field than any team at this tournament. France gets kind of close, but I do think there's a gap there. And if Brazil don't win this thing, it is going to be because of something that happens to them or something they fail to do. I don't think there is a team that, if you say Brazil played up to their potential, can take them out in this tournament. Maybe I end up being wrong on that. I felt that way before this game, certainly feel that way after because of what Brazil did. I mean, it's just different when it clicks that way. And again, they're also arguably the best defensive team at this tournament. It's not like they have to play this way to win. And I will also always want the team that dictates a game through possession. And Brazil do that better than anybody in the world at this point, I would argue. So, some larger thoughts, because there isn't too much to say about this game in particular. They were brilliant. The scoreline says everything you need to know. Congratulations, South Korea, on a great run. Really fun to watch this team, see the world kind of get introduced to some of these players outside of Sun, who everybody knows is kind of the face of South Korea. A lot of other players stepped up in this tournament. You saw a phenomenal goal. These goals weren't coming from Sun, and so that was a really cool thing to see just how good the South Korea team is player for player. Congratulations, Brazil. So Brazil, Croatia, our most recent quarterfinal to be set. That is all for this World Cup recap. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'll see you next time.